guys, I want to talk about valuation reports. Now, it suddenly came to me that over the last 25 years, I've been a mortgage broker. As a team, and my firm must have seen over 20,000 different survey reports from lenders when you're either purchasing or refinancing a property. And therefore, wouldn't it be absolute gold dust if you could tease out the common issues that surveyors find when they go around and survey a property? Because if we were forearmed with that information, we might not even have bought that property in the first place, or we might have renegotiated with the buyer a little bit more, or we might have done some more planning and more due diligence up front to save time and effort. We might have been able to put other things in place to make sure that that property went through smoothly, which is clearly what we all want. So what I've done today, for those of you who are actively buying this year, is just give you a summary of some of those key areas that are going to help you save time, save money when you're buying your properties. Now, I want to start with EPC ratings. Now, I know that the EPC debate has disappeared. The government have really kicked that into the long grass. However, it's not disappeared completely, because here's the thing. Lenders still have a policy rule when it comes to EPC ratings. Of course, they're not going to be demanding that it's a C or above rating, which what the consultation was all about. However, they will still expect your property to be an E rating or above. So A to E is acceptable, but here's the big point I want to make. There is still 1 in 5 buy-to-lets out there that are on an F or a G rating. 20% of all private rented sector properties are still on an F and a G. So I'm bound to be talking to you, some of you today, who have F and G rated properties in your portfolio. And if you're going, I don't even know what they are, then you've got to get onto the EPC register, public document, just Google EPC register, and you'll be able to see what your rating is. It may even be out of date, which can be another issue. Back to the point. So the surveyor is going to check. If you don't know or haven't looked ahead of time, the surveyor will pick that up. If it's an F or a G, it's a decline. Now, there is an exception to this. Now, I don't want to get into this in too much. I haven't got the time to look on this, but you might want to write this down, that there is an exemptions register. So the government allow, I believe there's up to 7 different reasons why you cannot increase the rating above the F and G to get it to an E or above. Now, the one that certainly springs to mind is that it's financially prohibitive. So if you can demonstrate that it's going to cost too much money to drag your property from an F or a G to an E or above, then they'll allow that property to go into the exemption register. And here's my point, that then the lender will check this, and if it is on the exemptions register, then it will allow that property still to go through, and you can refinance it and get the money out that you want. So that's why that is massively important. Now, on to my second bullet point, which I think is really important, is the surveyor will ask themselves the question when they go around the property, is this property in a lettable state? Now, there's no actual written definition of what a lettable state is. So I'm going to give you mine from just my experience over the years. When the surveyor's going around the property, they're going to ask themselves the question, right here, right now, in the condition that the property is currently at, will there be enough demand from prospective tenants to be able to let the property at the market rent? Will there be enough demand in its current state to let this property at the market rent for that property, of course, in that area? And that's what the surveyor is asking themselves. So that's the question we need to answer. Now, when you look at, for example, the bathroom and the kitchen, the two of the main rooms in the house, of course, for most properties, it has got wear and tear. It has started to get a little bit tired. Does that mean that there isn't enough demand? Probably perfectly fine. You know, it's still a very workable kitchen, still okay to most people. Most people will let it, happy days. But there becomes a tipping point when that kitchen or that bathroom becomes so old and has deteriorated so much. Yes, it's still functional, but it's somehow the surveyor has subjectively deemed that the condition has got to a tipping point where there's going to be little demand for that property because it will be off-putting to potential tenants. And if we think in our heart of hearts that it's moved to that side of the line, then you may well find that the surveyor is going to say it's not lettable. Of course, you could still let it, but it might be that you've got to let it cheaper. And that's the point, that it's got to be not only lettable in its current state, but at the market rate that you would expect for that type of property in that sort of condition. So that's the question you've got to ask yourself. Now, as a specialist broker in this area, we will, as a matter of course, find that landlords will send us copies of and photos and links to agents' websites of the internal shots of these properties. So if you want us to give our opinion, and it is only an opinion, we're not surveyors, but there's a lot of experience within the office to say whether we feel that property is likely to be classed as lettable or not. So we're more than happy to give our personal view, and you can take that and add that to your decision making. Down valuations. Listen, sadly, as we entered into 2024, properties I'm seeing are being down valued on a probably too regular basis. Now, is that landlords with rose tinted glasses on who are putting in property valuations that are slightly higher than we might expect? Who knows? But nevertheless, we're seeing that. So how can we try and figure out what's a realistic valuation? Well, look, here's a thing to make a note of here. When surveyors go out there, one thing they have to do is to get 3 comparable properties that have actually sold in the area. So that's the bit I want to underline for you today. Actually sold. So there's absolutely no point in you trying to argue with me that there's properties on the market right now, just like yours, that are going for £200,000, and so you want to put 200 grand. But actually, when you look on land registry or look at properties that have sold recently, they've only sold for 170, 180, 190. The surveyor is going to ignore anything that's on the market, and they will be looking at actual sold properties. So here's my point. If you do that bit of research in advance, and you can cherry pick some properties that have sold that do compare with yours, but also are in the ballpark of the valuation you're looking for, then I would put the extra time in. Don't just allow the surveyor to go around the property on their own, or just let the tenant let them in. Meet them at the property, print a report out, give them that information on those comparables, and you're more likely to get the valuation that you wanted. Now, on my 4th point, mix of tenant versus owners. Now, if you are looking to buy a property that's an ex-council house, local authority property, you may not know that within the policy of lots of lenders, there's a little rule that says if the mix, the ratio of tenants on that housing estate compared to those that own and occupy those properties is more than 50%. So if the mix is more than 50% actually renting than actually physically live and own that property, that may well be a decline. And with some lenders, it's a hard decline. Now, you wouldn't know that until the valuation's done, but there is a way of finding that out. So grab your pen and paper, write this website down, www.streetcheck.co.uk. Go onto that website, go onto the housing tab, and within that section, you type in the postcode, and it will give you the data for that street and that area, so you can see the mix that I've just described. So you know up front, as part of your due diligence, when you're thinking of putting an offer in and buying that property, that's really gold dust information to know in advance, because many lenders will not have appetite to lend if, as I said, there's more tenants than owners in that area. Keeping with the theme of council houses or ex-local authority properties is something called non-standard construction. You'll certainly know this phrase if you've bought one in the past, but if not, that's the umbrella title for all the types of build and construction type for local authorities. Well, I'm saying all of them, for a big chunk of them. So that over the last 50 years or so, there's been a whole range of construction types. Now, unfortunately, some of the methods and materials that have been used, in hindsight, have been found to not stand the test of time. And so there's been well-known issues with many different build types. So the first thing you need to find out is, well, what is the build type? And again, come to us as your broker. If you're thinking of buying an ex-local authority property, find out what the build type is. Harangue your estate agent. If your estate agent says, oh, I don't know, it's up to them to find it. Do they want to sell that property or not? Get them to find out what the build type is, let you know, and then as brokers, we will give you more information on whether there is known issues with them, whether there's known remedies with them, whether those remedies should also already have been done, and what sort of guarantees you might want to be looking for. So you're now armed with more information to go back to the estate agent and as part of your due diligence. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be buying non-standard construction type properties. I've bought them myself, but you've got to go in with your eyes open. And certainly if you go in naively, the surveyor will pick this up, and again, it might be wasted survey fee money that you've paid when you find out that it's of the wrong type and it hasn't had the remedial action and it hasn't got the warranties and guarantees in place. So if you're thinking of buying non-standard construction properties, the takeaway message here is to find out what type it is and talk to us as soon as possible. And equally, if you're purchasing any property, we're more than happy for you to just send us an email, send a link through to the property and say, what do you think? Can you see any issues as far as you're concerned? And again, we're happy to give our two penneth. So to enable you to do that, you can just click on the link below at the end of this piece and speak to the team, tell them about the type of property you're looking to buy, and we will give you our opinion on things you should be looking out for, questions that want answering, so that you can make sure you do your proper due diligence on that one. So I hope that has been of use.